Hello and welcome. I'm so excited to have six times national award winning, internationally acclaimed filmmaker, animator, storyteller, Kireet Khurana with us today. It was so energizing to talk to a filmmaker who has made more than 500 ad films, 12 plus short films, animations, and documentaries. And I hope the conversation will inspire you as well. Please stay subscribed for more inspiring stories.
We are migrants. We want to be free. Are we not citizens of this country? Humans we are. But if you disagree, then kill us. Issue a decree. With nothing to eat, we left the cities. Our hunger was fed with atrocities. Covered thousands of miles in the scorching heat. Some on their cycle, others walking bare feet. Many died of heat, left to our fate. We carried on, betrayed by the state. Dispatched like cattle in buses and trains, we lost lives, smeared history with stains.
You were fortunate to have a background in the animation. So, were you determined to start with animation and filmmaking as a career, or you had other things in mind? How did it happen?
Actually, temperamentally, I was suited for animation right from the beginning. When I was 6 years old, I was actually, working on animation films. Thanks to my father and the kind of, background or the kind of environment we had at home. Advertising films per se in animation was a means of actually making a living. I wanted to make animation films. I've made series. I've made an animation feature film as well. So I do a lot of animation short films, mainly for social causes. And so animation has been a part of my passion and a part of my life. But increasingly, I think over the past 10, 15 years, I've moved towards storytelling overall. So I'm doing a lot of live action stuff as well. So wherever, if a story requires animation, of course, I'm doing it in animation, but if it can be done in live action, I'm doing that as well. So it's not really, yes, animation has been a large part of my life so far, but of late, I've been doing all kinds of other things as well.
Nice. And how was the foreign education? Was it a new learning? How did it help you in structuring yourself in the to the industry or to the medium?
One must understand that when I went to learn animation filmmaking in Canada in '91, there was little or no animation happening in this country, and the kind of quality of animation also that was happening was very, very basic. So I did not feel that we were anywhere close to the international mark, that where we are today as a country, because we did not know their technique, we did not know their technology, we didn't know a lot of other things as well. So it was very, very important, and I think that was a game changer for me. It was a pivotal point in my life where I had to. When I went there, it opened my eyes to a lot of other things. From a storytelling perspective, from a technique perspective, from an overall proficiency perspective, being able to do animation at an international level, or and collaborating with the National Film Board of Canada after that. So it opened up many doors for me, and I think when I came back, of course, I took up advertising because I did not have the money to keep making short films. So the level of proficiency that I've achieved in animation, thanks to my education abroad, actually helped me get a lot of work as well, because there were very few people who could actually match the kind of quality of animation that I could do or deliver. And so, from that perspective, yes, it's all worked out very, very well. It was very enriching. Apart from the fact that, I met people from diverse backgrounds and from so many nationalities, and they were all, students along with me. So that opens your world to a completely different view. It has a different vista altogether where you kind of understand inclusiveness, you understand a lot of other things that typically would have escaped, um, you know, me if I had just been in India. So that's important.
The other day, I was talking to Suresh Ariat of Exores. So he was saying, for a person who has done animation, doing live action is like an easy job because he has done
Yeah.
almost all the, So how do you look at it?
Actually, which is absolutely true because in animation, you have to be the storyboard artist, you have to be the person who's acting, you have to be the person who's doing the camera, the set design, you need to have proficiency in every single area. There is no editor that is required because you don't shoot material. You have to be very, very specific about what you want to animate and how many frames you want to animate because it's an expensive process. So, you already get familiar with the craft of editing, you already get familiar with the craft of, how to stage a scene, how to light it up, how to design it, how to act it out. All those areas are basically a training of any good animator, and therefore you're not relying on technicians. You're mostly everything pretty much is in your control, and which is quite extraordinary. Animation requires that kind of it is that kind of discipline which it requires you to understand all facets of filmmaking. And it is something, obviously, when you get into live action, you say, oh, so you have a department head, or you have a DOP, or you have actors who will contribute, or you have this, or you have that. So it becomes very easy because most of the responsibilities are taken away from the director and handled by their respective heads. But you have so much more understanding of their departments as well. So that's interesting.
So you have won a lot of international accolades and national
Yeah.
awards, 6 national awards. So that is something which people look at as in, okay, I need to win this, I need to win that. So now, after winning all this, what next? As in, what are the other things that motivates you?
I think more and more increasingly, as I move forward, I've seen my life has moved from ambition to purpose. Today, I want to make a lot of films on social causes, and I'm making a lot of films on social causes. In fact, my last feature film, Thief of Taj Mahal, which I did just 2 years ago, is on social entrepreneurship. So it is about a man who's wanting to bring literacy into his village, and he runs a wayside dhaba, and he actually tells the customers to teach the children of the village instead of paying for the food. It's like a barter system. So and I'm doing documentaries. I'm doing one documentary on the homeless people in India as well, along with one of the leading social leaders. So I'm getting more and more, and many of these projects are live action. So right now, what is beckoning me is that the power of cinema, or the power of films, audiovisual medium, to actually impact change and to actually change the mindsets of people. That is something that is very, very important, and that is something that I'm increasingly focusing on. So a lot of the stuff that we're developing and what we want to aspire to do and what we're pitching right now and what we are working on under production is in the social sector, is in the social sector space. And we want to create strong stories there that actually touch, move, and inspire people for change, because there's a lot of frivolity out there, and I personally am a person who would like to have films that have a meaning, that have a certain definition, have a certain resonance, and a certain impact left behind in society. And that's something that I'm moving forward towards more and more. I feel that's my journey ahead.
Well, talking about that, definitely I should mention about Bhimsain ji, because we all grew watching those animations, and many of those which were of public interest, social awareness, and social responsibility. So I think you carry that tradition. That's the best part. What I look at it.
चिड़िया अनेक चिड़िया दाना चुगने बैठ गई.
Generations grew up watching these filmmakers' movies. The first to make an entire series with computer animation. A pioneer who is an inspiration to the entire industry till date. Bhimsain won 16 national awards for his prolific work.
Yeah. So in some sense, yes, I can see that a lot of the things that my father did, I probably imbibed it along the way. Unconsciously, I imbibed it, and it's part of my DNA now. But having said that, when I started off, it was not like this. I was doing a lot of commercial work because I think the important part was when I came back from Canada in '90s. Of course, I did a lot of films on various social causes as well. But I think I was more driven by the fact that I had to make money. I had to set up my office. I had to get a staff. I had to. There was a lot of personal ambition involved in that. I did a series, animation series as well. So there was a lot of projects that were not necessarily towards a social a social bent of mind, but that is becoming increasingly more now. So yes, I think the shift from ambition to purpose is something that has happened
To walk for
very
weeks,
recently. It's about 7, 8, 10
hungry,
years ago.
battered. We never once said that you only thought of us for the work we do. We neither asked for schools, nor roads, nor big houses or cars, not even a strong roof to live under. Then why didn't you, with a call or a beckon, or even an indication, stop us? Just once, you could have stopped us. Before we set off on this journey, we never wanted to take.
Even Bhimsainji's that era, I think he had explored. He was a new revolution at that time, looking at the kind of works.
Yeah.
In early 70s, he had also explored the possibility of doing a feature film, and that too 130 plus awards at that time.
Yeah.
So, do you find this, coming from that tradition as a challenge, as in there is a perspective that people will look at you as in, okay, he has set some benchmark. So do you have any such, did you have to overcome something of that sort?
So yeah, see, every generation has its own set of challenges, right? I personally, for whatever reason, my personality was such that I never carried that burden in my head. Largely also because of the fact that I didn't use his name too much when I came up, because he used just his first name Bhimsain and I used my own name Kireet Khurana. So people couldn't connect that I was his son. And after '95, I never really worked with him as well. So uh, we weren't together till about recently, where I added him in my company as a president. So for pretty much the large part of my struggle, I was pretty independent, and I was pretty much wanting to do it in my own way. We had our share of differences. Of course, we had a share of love and all that, but professionally we had a share of differences. So we really were headed in different directions in some sense, even though we were in the same profession. We collaborated on a few projects together, but I never really carried that burden. My father won 16 national awards. If I had started my career thinking that I have to surpass my father's feat, I would be dead by now. So the idea is that is not something that I ever looked at. Those times were different. Those challenges were different. He came to the city. He was absolutely self-made. He didn't know anything about animation, anything about filmmaking. He learned it on his, of course, not on his own, but he joined Films Division where he learned it, and he had mentors. It's a very different kind of journey. We were born with certain privileges, so we had a certain head start. So we managed to create something more. And similarly, my son has a lot more privileges and he has a lot bigger head start. So every single generation, by and large, will be more privileged than the previous one. And the competition also therefore grows, and he did not have competition. I had some competition. My son has a lot more competition. So it's that you really cannot compare eras, and times are very, very different now. Challenges are very, very different. At his time, he was producing and directing. He was even distributing, and he was kind of releasing his own films. Today it's just not possible, right? You need to have a producer. The cost of making a film is so high. At that time, he could do that. The thing is that he did not therefore need to collaborate with anybody. He was the one-man army himself, as like many other filmmakers from that era, who were very self-made and very one-man army kind of driven. They have their own funding and they would make their own films and they would, distribute it and they would market it and they would be the producer and director. Today, where is it? Where do we? It's very rare to hear a producer and produced and directed by, but it was commonplace at that time. So yeah, I don't carry that burden on my head.
People look at them in that perspective. Okay, and they keep on asking, by this age he did this much.
That comparison itself is a fallacy, because the thing is, I've seen that parents over here bring up their children with comparison. Look at that child; he is so much doing, so much working harder than you. Look at this, look at that. We're just creating failures if you're doing that. Comparison is never a good thing. Everybody has their own set of challenges. Everybody has their own. You have to be just one thing. You have to be better than yourself than what you were yesterday. Every single day you have to be better than yourself. You're the only competition is against you. And in that, you keep moving in that direction. You don't really think about, my father did this and my father did that, or my son did this and whatever. It doesn't really matter. Everybody is here to live their own lives and their own destiny. And so am I, just like everybody else.
So true. Thank you.
As parents, a lot of Indian parents do that. Is that they destroy their children even by the time they are adults, just by simple comparison that no, you have to become a doctor, no, you have to look at this guy, he worked so hard and he got so many marks, and look at this, look at that. That comparative nonsense that goes on in our society is absolutely wrong. It should not ever happen. Yes, people do that, but it should not ever happen, because everybody is in individual, and it's important to understand that everybody comes with their own set of challenges. I am not my father and my father is not me. I have some very good strengths and I have certain limitations that he had. But he lived in a different era with different circumstances. He had different opportunities. I have different opportunities and obstacles. Very simple.
Right. Where do you find the space of Indian animation? Still, I think visibility. People are a bit reluctant to look at Indian animation. Or is it happening only in India, or is it like?
There are several domains. It all depends on when you talk about Indian animation. There are several domains in Indian animation, right? There is the visual effects segment. The visual effects segment is doing very well, where we are servicing a lot of outsourced work from the West. And we're doing a lot of their feature films, and we're doing exceedingly well there. We're doing exceedingly well in servicing international contracts. For example, the series work that is happening for this thing, for OTT platforms or for television. A lot of the animation and a lot of the backend is being done here. Maybe the scripts are being developed there for DreamWorks and other shows like Technicolor India there, or DreamWorks was there till recently. So similarly, a lot of the work is being done here. And in that, if you see the journey of India from the mid 90s when it started to now, it's a phenomenal journey. We've really come up a long way. Short films, we are doing well. We're not doing too badly internationally. Also, we seem to be winning quite a few awards here and there. By and large, the short film space is obviously debilitated by the fact that a lot of the animators over there are funded by the government, or they have subsidies, or they get funded by different agencies, and therefore they're able to lock themselves up for 2 years in one room and then create their animation films and come out with a film that is phenomenal, creates great resonance. So short films, we're basically relying on people here who take time out from their sustenance, who will take spare time out and start making their films. So obviously our journey is much more difficult there. But having said that, there's some good talent there as well. As far as our indigenous animation is concerned, the TV segment seems to be doing reasonably okay, because there's a lot of Indian animation in the TV segment, we have Chacha Chaudhary, we have Motu Patlu, we have you know, Chota Beam and a whole lot of things. Now the Chota Beam, the one that is little Mighty Beam, the small one, that's coming on Netflix by Green Cold, and that's doing very well internationally as well. So we've had some successes there. What is not really working is the feature film model, right? And largely because of the fact that if USA has 50,000 screens and China has 40,000 screens, us we had 12,000 screens, now it dwindled to 9,000 screens. So, and most of it is driven, star driven. So even the smaller indie films find it very difficult for a release. And you can't recover money. If you're making a decent animation feature film, you'll spend at least 20, 25 crores in that. And you can't recover monies in that. You can't recoup costs in that. So these are issues that are there specifically with the feature film space, that there is no recovery model there, and which is why we, even though if we want to tell our own feature films, but even in that we have a wonderful film called Bombay Rose by Gitanjali Rao now, which is now made it to the Oscars. So we're hoping that that will change a few things as well. But again, Bombay Rose had a huge struggle of 8 to 9 years of incubation and making, because she made it herself. She started as a one-man army. She worked on it for 4 years. She came up with a 20-minute film, and then she got stalled, and she got funding. Then somehow she completed the film, and now, of course, it's in the Oscars. I don't know if she's planning another one or not, but the process itself of 8 to 10 years is very, very exhausting. It takes away a chunk of your life. So that is something, that is important to understand, that the distribution and the marketing and the audience is not supporting Indian animation features. But with the coming of Netflix, Amazon, all these things, and Netflix specifically focusing more and more on animation, I think that's an area that perhaps we will be cracking in the next 2, 3, 4 years. Let's see if that actually happens.
Early 90s onwards, you are in the industry, and you have your space in each of what is possible with the visual communication. So how do you look at this change? How to adapt to, and what is the possibility?
It is still very challenging. It's not easy. It's still very, very challenging to make animation feature films. It's very, very challenging. Unless you have an IP that has already succeeded, like Chota Bheem has succeeded, so it has a lot of momentum there. Or Motu Patlu has already succeeded, and because it was already an pre-existing comic book which had a certain number of followers, so that is something there. But it kind of becomes difficult to kind of move forward when you do not have any kind of existing published material or IP to pitch it to the OTT platforms as well, because they will always look at projects where there's a bestseller published already, or there is some comic books, or in the case of animation, it's an already known character. It gives them so much more impetus and TRPs. For the same money, they are going to get so many more eyeballs, as opposed to trying to establish a brand. So there are challenges, but I think the opportunities are there right now, and one has to look at from a perspective that also how you can encash on it. I think we're still grappling with those new opportunities that are coming our way. I think most of us are still trying to grapple with it, except for 1 or 2 studios who have got it right. I don't think anybody else has really got it right. And some of the big studios have not got it right. So everybody's pretty much struggling right now. And so that's an area of challenge.
So you have also ventured early, long back, and now maybe more people are venturing into, a mix of animation and live action. And you have worked with extremely talented actors and music directors. And so how was that experience working with them, coming up with this, extraordinary idea, getting things out of them?
It was absolutely fabulous. I thought Ajay was absolutely fantastic. First of all, to back a project which is so whacked out and so experimental, that itself was something that was remarkable, because I went there and I pitched it to him, so it was quite amazing. Then subsequently, The film did get a great response with the children audience. So the audience really loved the film. The core audience didn't do well at the box office because most of the adults didn't want to go with the children. But in television, even today, it is running, and children really love the film. And that is important to put a perspective that it was made for children. The animation, the script, and everything was made for children. So the important thing here to understand is that it was a first of its kind in India, and I think that of course there were a lot of hiccups. It took longer than expected, but it was an absolute pleasure to work with Ajay, and it was absolute pleasure to work on the film. It was a great opportunity. Unfortunately, again, as I said, theatrically, the film didn't do well because most of the adults didn't want to go for it. And if the kids wanted to see it at that time, piracy was also rampant. So they showed the film to their kids on the first weekend itself, and it was very um, distressing, or it was very disheartening at that time to see that the audience actually should have flocked to the theaters and should have taken their children to the theater as a family experience, didn't do so. um, it is important to understand that we do not have a culture where people go and watch animation films. So even if a Disney film or a Pixar film releases over here, not too many adults prefer to go and watch it, and that's one of the biggest drawbacks of why theatrical experience feature films, animated feature films, are not doing well, and perhaps may not do well for quite some time till this mindset doesn't change.
Same, Sureshji was also talking in one of his webinars, as in people look
Yeah.
at it as a cartoon. Oh, cartoon is for kids.
Yeah. So it's important that the mindset changes, because it's not just about people say, oh, no, but their storytelling is so much better, Indian storytelling and the quality is so much better. That's not the point. The point is, if a Disney film is released here, is it actually doing well? Is a Disney animated film or whatever? It's not really doing all that well compared to some of the other film live action films. The animation films pretty much are the poorer cousins over here. And so even if the quality was way up there and it was Disney or a Pixar, it's not going to do well necessarily over here. There are challenges, and we have to look at all those challenges and see how that works out.
How was the experience working with Energy? I find a lot of creative stuff coming on his Facebook timeline.
Anil is quite extraordinary. He is quite prolific. He comes up with ideas very quickly, and like I've worked with him on a few projects. And anytime we're discussing, it seems like it's almost effortless that he just comes out with the thing. He just understands it and he just comes out with something. And he's an ad guru, and he's won so many awards, including the Cannes. Even his other creativity is very quick with current issues. Also, he'll come out with a sketch and he'll write some nice cheeky tagline to it. So he's quite extraordinary, and he's very quick and very sharp and very on the ball. So it's a pleasure. I think one of the things that advertising also suffers from is a lot of the so-called creative directors really don't know their craft, and Anil is just one of those guys who's so refreshing to see. He's so full of talent and he's so full of ideas that he actually truly belongs in advertising, and he's kind of highest caliber of one of the highest calibers of individuals I've seen in advertising. So it's quite extraordinary.
Before winding up, I think I should check with you on your new ventures, because people will be keen to know what all things are.
Yeah. So right now, as I said, I'm working on in the post production. I'm working on a documentary, it's a 1 hour long documentary on the homeless of India. So we shot that across various states. It was supposed to complete much earlier, but now because of the lockdown, it's got terribly delayed. So that is one of the things that we're working on right now. Apart from that, a couple of feature films that we're pitching. There's some short films that I'm developing along with a couple of them with Anil as well. And basically we have a couple of series as well that we're currently pitching. There's another feature film that in animation that is also being discussed, which is in the final stage of discussion, which I will share in a few weeks as and when it goes. So there's a lot of activity happening, but at this point, as we know, the people are not really taking too many decisions. A lot of people are talking, but decisions are still not being taken very actively. So we're on that stage where we are pitching a lot of work, and it's in various stages of discussion and negotiation.
Thank you so much for your time. Hearty wishes for all your new ventures.
My pleasure, absolutely, and wish you all the best, Ashish, and hope to chat with you again.
इनका भेद बता मेरे अब तू अच्छी करनी कर ले तू डाली फूल जगत के माई जहाँ देखूं वहाँ तू का तू जल थल जीव में तू ही विराजे जहाँ देखूं वहाँ तू का तू कहे कबीर सुनो भाई साधु गुरु मिला है ज्यों का त्यों कहे कबीर सुनो भाई साधु गुरु मिला है ज्यों का त्यों